It's a quiet Tuesday morning in suburban Minnesota. A woman stands in her boyfriend's driveway, rocks clenched between her fingers like makeshift brass knuckles, ready to strike. Her 3 children watch from inside. This is the story of how everyone in Rebecca's life, her ex-partners, her current boyfriend, even strangers, united to save those kids from the person who was supposed to protect them most. Before we dive into this shocking story, if you appreciate deep dives into real-life situations that make us think about family, mental health, and when love goes wrong, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Trust me, you won't want to miss how this unfolds. Rebecca Torres stood in the driveway that Tuesday morning, and something inside her had snapped. The 34-year-old former military police officer wasn't the disciplined soldier she'd once been. Now, with small rocks wedged between her fingers like homemade brass knuckles, she was ready to hurt the man she claimed to love. Marcus watched in horror from across the driveway. This wasn't the first time Rebecca had threatened him. It wasn't even the first time she'd threatened to kill his entire family. But something about this morning felt different, more dangerous, more final. Inside the house, 3 little faces pressed against the window. Rebecca's children, 3 kids from 2 different fathers, all living under Marcus's roof because Rebecca had nowhere else to go. They'd seen their mother like this before, angry, out of control, unpredictable. But they were too young to understand that what they were witnessing wasn't normal. It wasn't love. Marcus felt his heart pounding as Rebecca screamed threats, her fists clenched around those rocks. He'd been scared of her for months now, walking on eggshells, trying to keep the peace for the sake of those kids. But fear has a way of pushing people to their breaking point too. That's when Marcus made a decision that would change everything. He waited until Rebecca went inside. Then, with trembling hands, he pulled out his phone and did something desperate, something that proved just how bad things had gotten. He called Rebecca's ex-partners, both of them, the fathers of her children. "Listen," Marcus said quietly into the phone, "I know we're not exactly friends, but your kids are in danger. Rebecca's losing it. Someone needs to help these children." The first father, Jackson, listened in stunned silence. The second, Brandon, asked only one question: "How bad is it?" "Bad enough that I'm calling you," Marcus replied. Within the hour, both men had separately contacted the police with the same desperate plea: "Get our children away from their mother before something terrible happens." But Rebecca had no idea any of this was happening. She'd already moved on from the morning's violence, acting as if nothing had occurred. She'd made plans. The whole family was going to take Marcus's boat out on the lake. A nice family day, fun in the sun. Marcus played along, his stomach in knots. As they loaded up the kids and headed to the water, police cruisers were already rolling toward the lake. Officers had their orders: locate Rebecca Torres, assess the situation, and remove 3 children from their mother's custody. Rebecca spread out a blanket on the dock, smiling at her kids as they splashed near the shore. Marcus stood at a distance, watching the access road. Then he saw them, 2 police vehicles pulling into the parking area. "This is it," he thought. "Please let this work. Please let those kids be okay." But Rebecca had no idea what was waiting for her at that lake. She had no idea that everyone in her life had finally had enough. And she definitely had no idea just how badly this perfect summer day was about to fall apart. The officers' boots echoed on the wooden dock as they approached. Rebecca looked up from her blanket, confusion flashing across her face. Then, just as quickly, that confusion turned to rage. "We need to speak with you about your children," the lead officer said calmly. "We're going to need to take them with us today." "Excuse me," Rebecca's voice went cold. "You're not taking my kids anywhere." What happened next was a standoff that would last nearly an hour. Rebecca refused to cooperate, refused to sit down, refused to listen. She pulled out her phone, fingers shaking as she dialed her attorney. "I'm calling my lawyer right now. He said I get them until the court date. You can't just take them." "That's fine, ma'am," the officer replied, his patience already wearing thin. "But we're still taking the kids." "No, you're not." "Yes, we are. I'm supposed to just let my kids go with random cops who show up." Rebecca's voice climbed higher, drawing stares from other families at the lake. The officers exchanged glances. They'd dealt with difficult parents before, but Rebecca's escalating behavior was concerning. She was stalling, arguing about every detail, creating chaos, anything to avoid the inevitable. Finally, the lead officer had enough. "Ma'am, they're coming with us now. If you obstruct or resist, we'll place you in handcuffs. For the children's sake, you don't want that." Rebecca's children stood frozen, caught between their mother's fury and the uniformed strangers. The officers carefully boarded the boat where the kids had been sitting, speaking gently to them as they gathered them up. That's when Rebecca truly lost control. One officer mispronounced one of her ex-partner's names, and she erupted. "Maybe you should know what the hell you're going to say before you come here," she screamed. "Coming in here saying the wrong name of their dad, you piece of—" "I misspoke," the officer interrupted firmly. "We're done here." The children were led away, confused and scared. Rebecca stood on the dock, chest heaving, watching her kids disappear into the police vehicles. Marcus stood nearby, relief and guilt washing over him in equal measure. But the day wasn't over. The officers asked Rebecca and Marcus to return to the house so they could collect the children's belongings, clothes, toys, necessities. Rebecca sat rigid in the passenger seat of Marcus's truck, silent but seething. At the house, while Rebecca went to gather items from the bedroom, one officer pulled Marcus aside into the garage. Away from her. That's when the dam finally broke. "You okay, man?" the officer asked quietly. Marcus's shoulders sagged. "No, she's got to go. She's destroying my house. I'm down 2 TVs, broken glass everywhere, the bedroom's trashed." "Has she hit you?" Marcus hesitated. There it was, the question he'd been too ashamed to answer for months. "Yeah, yesterday morning, in the driveway." The officer's expression hardened. "We can't leave you in this situation either. Does she have somewhere she can go?" "One of those vehicles is hers, but she won't leave. She just won't." "Do you want her out?" Marcus looked at the officer, and for the first time in months, he said what he'd been too afraid to say. "Yes, please." "Then we can have her removed, tonight." Inside the house, Rebecca had no idea this conversation was happening. She was in the bathroom when Marcus carefully approached and, as gently as possible, suggested she should leave for the night. That's when Rebecca tried to kick his dog. "Don't kick my dog," Marcus shouted, something finally snapping in him too. "The dog was in my face," Rebecca screamed back. The officer stepped between them, his jaw set. "That's it. You need to get whatever stuff you can gather right now, and you need to leave this house. Tonight." "What are my options?" Rebecca demanded. "You gather what you need and go, or we take you to jail. Those are your options." Rebecca stared at him, realizing she'd lost. Everyone had turned against her, her exes, her boyfriend, the police, everyone. But if she was going down, she decided, she'd take Marcus with her. "Am I allowed to take any of the marijuana?" she asked loudly, deliberately. "Or no?" She was trying to get Marcus in trouble, to expose his illegal stash in front of the officers. Marijuana possession was illegal in Minnesota. She smiled slightly, waiting for the officers to turn on him. But the officers didn't take the bait. "We're not worried about that today," one said flatly. "Get your stuff." Rebecca's last weapon had failed. She stomped toward the bedroom, Marcus trailing behind, and began yanking open drawers. But Rebecca wasn't done fighting yet, not by a long shot. And what would happen in that bedroom in the next 10 minutes would change everything, and land her in handcuffs for real. Rebecca tore through the bedroom like a hurricane, throwing clothes into bags, slamming drawers, her anger filling every corner of the room. Marcus stood in the doorway, exhausted and defeated, while the officers waited in the hallway. "Where are the tubs, Marcus?" Rebecca's voice rose again. "The storage tubs we bought together, with the lids." "I don't know what you're—" We bought tubs together," she screamed. The lead officer stepped into the doorway. "Ma'am, you need to stop yelling." "This is ridiculous." Rebecca whirled around, her face flushed. "He doesn't get in trouble for all the stuff he has, but I get in trouble. That's so funny. That's super fair, guys." The officer's voice dropped, cold and final. "Ma'am, if I wanted you in trouble, I would have taken you to jail a long time ago. You're trying my patience. Get your stuff and let's go." "Do you not see me getting my stuff?" Rebecca gestured wildly at the bags around her. "I told you to get your necessities." "I am getting my necessities, my medicine, my military stuff, my—" "That's not necessary right now." And that's when it happened. That's when years of military training, months of escalating violence, weeks of losing control all collided in one explosive moment. Rebecca lunged at the officer. What followed was chaos, a violent struggle that couldn't be shown in detail, but the sounds told the story. Furniture scraping across the floor, shouting. Rebecca fighting with everything she had, hitting, kicking, refusing to be restrained. Marcus backed away, horrified. This was the woman he'd loved, the mother of 3 children, completely unraveled. The officers struggled to control her, their training kicking in as Rebecca fought like a cornered animal. She was strong, military strong, and she wasn't going to go quietly. Then came the warning, "Stop resisting or you will be tased." Rebecca didn't stop. The electric crackle filled the room. Rebecca's body went rigid, then collapsed to the floor. The fight was over. As the officers placed handcuffs on her wrists, reading her rights, Marcus stood in the hallway with his hand over his mouth. This was real. This was actually happening. Rebecca Torres was arrested that night and charged with battery on a police officer, disorderly conduct, and domestic abuse. The woman who'd once sworn to serve and protect had become the very thing she'd once fought against. But here's the part that made this story truly remarkable, the part that showed just how far things had fallen. Rebecca's 2 ex-partners and her current boyfriend, 3 men who had every reason to hate each other, had united like an emergency response team. They'd put aside pride, jealousy, and personal history for one single purpose: to save 3 innocent children from harm. Jackson and Brandon, men who'd once competed for Rebecca's attention, who'd fought over custody and visitation, had received the same desperate phone call from Marcus, and without hesitation, both had called the police. Separately, but with the same message: our children aren't safe. It was like something out of a movie, the unlikely alliance. 3 fathers from 3 different chapters of Rebecca's life, all reaching the same heartbreaking conclusion at the same time. While Rebecca sat in the back of a police cruiser that night, her wrists bound, her life in pieces, those 3 children were sitting in a different vehicle entirely. The officer who'd removed them from the lake had made a stop before taking them to their guardian. An ice cream shop. 3 small faces lit up as the officer handed them each a cone. Chocolate, strawberry, vanilla with sprinkles. For just a few minutes they got to be kids again, kids who didn't have to witness violence, who didn't have to be afraid, who didn't have to choose sides. "You guys doing okay?" the officer asked gently. The oldest nodded, licking her ice cream, but her eyes told a different story. These children had seen too much. They'd carry this day with them forever. But at least they were safe. Rebecca's case moved through the courts, though the final outcome remained unclear. What was clear, though, was that a breaking point had been reached, not just for Rebecca, but for everyone around her. Sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes mental health spirals beyond what family can handle alone. Sometimes violence becomes so normalized that it takes strangers with badges to step in and say, This ends now. And sometimes, just sometimes, the people who have every reason to be enemies find common ground in the most important mission of all, protecting children. Those three kids would remember this day forever. The day the boat trip ended with police, the day their mom was arrested, the day everything changed. But maybe, just maybe, they'd also remember something else. Ice cream on a difficult day. A kind officer who made them smile. And three fathers who loved them enough to make the hardest call of their lives. Rebecca's story isn't really about her breakdown. It's about what happens when people find the courage to ask for help, even from unlikely allies. It's about recognizing when someone you love has become someone you fear. And it's about understanding that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit you can't fix it alone. Those three children got ice cream that day. But more importantly, they got a chance at safety. And that's where healing begins. This story is a reminder that domestic violence affects everyone, men, women, and especially children caught in the crossfire. If you or someone you know is in a dangerous relationship, please reach out. National Domestic Violence. You don't have to face it alone. What do you think about Rebecca's case? Could this have been prevented? How do we better support families in crisis? Share your thoughts respectfully in the comments below. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories that make us think. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.